It was the courtship that helped deliver Labor government, and there was a lengthy honeymoon where the parties worked together to get the carbon tax through. But now the relationship between Labor and the Greens is on the rocks, with Labor threatening to preference the Greens last in future elections. It's just one more crack in the tenuous arrangement keeping Labor in power federally, and it's prompting warnings that a Labor-Greens breakup could hand the coalition control of the Senate after the next federal election. Heather Ewart reports.
It was once a civilised affair. The Greens and Labor, with great fanfare, signing an agreement to form minority government. But resentment in Labor ranks has simmered pretty much ever since and is now at boiling point.
People in the Labor Party across the country are saying enough is enough.
This, I think, a completely deceitful notion that the Greens peddle about Labor not having core values, that Labor not standing for anything. That's a complete nonsense.
We think that voters symbolically should know that the Labor Party doesn't automatically consider itself an ally of the Green political party. They're very different to us on a whole range of issues.
We are the Progressive Party. Labor's now mired in this breakup caused by the right wing in New South Wales, but it's Labor's problem.
Senior ALP New South Wales right figures publicly kicked off a campaign at the weekend to take a new tough line on the Greens, including preferencing them last in some key contests. State Secretary Sam Dastyari spearheaded it, backed by union leader Paul Howes, whose stance on the Greens has been no secret for months.
Well, the Greens aren't a part of our movement. The Greens don't stand for what our movement stands for.
After plenty of muttering behind the scenes, now the battle is on in earnest, with the Greens stung into action and both sides trading blows, including the now retired Bob Brown, who signed the original deal.
Dastyari's position, Paul House's position, is a gift to Tony Abbott. How hurting is that for Labor voters? Their only option is to come across to the Greens.
It's confusing to Labor voters, it's confusing to them. They don't know what Labor's are standing for if that's the type of track they go down.
Maybe it was always just a matter of time as Labor watched its support base eroding. But the New South Wales push to be put to the vote at its state conference this weekend, with a motion to no longer give the Greens automatic preferencing, has opened the floodgates to Labor frustration around the country. And the catalyst was the recent debate on asylum seekers policy in the Parliament, which failed to find any compromise as boats were sinking.
Labor backbenchers across the country were furious at the decision of the Green political party to support the Liberals and block any real deal on compromise on asylum seekers. It's not good enough to let people continue to drown at sea.
Well, on some issues we disagree with the Greens. For example, the Greens and the Liberal Party voted in the Senate in the last week of sitting to knock out offshore processing for asylum seekers. The Liberal Party was pretty loopy about that as well.
When the Greens didn't compromise, I think there's some elements within their constituency are wondering if they took the right course, and now Labor's ramping up some of that.
Labor sees the chance to capitalise on genuine anger in the community about the Greens' failure to give ground on offshore processing. Mind you, that anger is directed at all sides. But if the Greens are worried about the public mood, they're not budging on policy in the least.
The Greens are our own party. We are willing to work with the other parties to get good outcomes, but not at the expense of the law, not at the expense of humanity, not at the expense of doing the right thing.
It's a state by-election for the inner suburban seat of Melbourne in 2 weeks' time that might put that sentiment to the test. The seat has been held by Labor for decades. The Liberals are not fielding a candidate, and polls show the Greens could well wrest it from the ALP. Again, the battle lines are drawn.
You can use it to create something really powerful and challenge the two major parties to do better. Thank you for your time.
And whether our brand is stronger than the Greens, well, that's a matter for voters to determine. But what I'm certain of is no Green has ever defeated a Conservative government. Only Labor can do that, but only with the support of progressive people in Melbourne and other seats.
You get the drift of the message, and it's one that key Labor members would like to see repeated around the country at the federal election when it comes to preferences.
The Greens will not be getting first preferences from the Labor Party in Melbourne ports.
Would you put the Liberal Party ahead of the Greens in your seat?
We could well do that, depending on who some of the other political parties are. If there is a more extreme political party, etc., we'll be putting them last.
That's all very well in the House of Representatives, but for the Senate it could be a very different story. Some in the party fear its right wing is grandstanding, and this could deliver a result like another Family First senator, or at worst for Labor, a coalition majority in the upper house.
The practical implications could be dangerous for the Labor Party post 2013. So I think that's something that Labor Party needs to factor in when it's making these threats about preferences and its relationship with the Greens. What sort of Senate do we want after 2013?
If this keeps going, it's going to be the end of the noble tradition of light on the hill. That's been now taken up by the Greens.
I think if there's a consistent determination by both the major political parties to treat the Greens as a sort of left-wing version of Pauline Hanson's One Nation, then it can work.
It's an appeal to the coalition to take the high moral ground as well and not preference the Greens, just as Victorian Premier Ted Baillieu did at the last state election, and he won. But the federal opposition is not exactly rushing to respond to that idea.